Halloween is a holiday that hardly scares anyone these days. Rather, it is just an excuse to put on a costume and tell your friends a scary story. But to be honest, somewhere deep down we all hope that these stories are just fiction, because if at least some of them turn out to be true, it can touch each of us. And one day it did. What people feared, what legends were about, became reality. And it happened on Halloween. Today, I will tell you a very scary story, which will not leave you indifferent and will definitely change your view of such a phenomenon as Halloween. The Man Who Killed Halloween. A catchy headline, isn't it? But for the small tech town of Deer Park, it couldn't have been otherwise. But it's worth starting with the background. It will help you understand how an ordinary children's holiday turned into a real nightmare. In Europe and North America, there has long been a tradition of Halloween, celebrate or do. Children go from house to house with buckets, giving adults a humorous ultimatum: either treat them or wait for a trick. But in 1970, the New York Times published an article that forever changed the tone of this holiday. Innocent fun suddenly turned into a source of fear. Reports appeared that among the sweets collected by children were needles, blades, shards of glass, and even poison. Panic spread like wildfire. Parents were afraid to let their children out alone because who knew who was next door? It seemed obvious there were so many crazy people around and no one could provide security. Horror stories are emerging. One of them is about a boy who ate a lollipop laced with heroin. Detroit, November 6th, a 5-year-old child who ate candy after Halloween died before he could get to it. Police confirmed that his candy contained heroin. Detroit, November 6th. A 5-year-old boy who ate candies collected for Halloween died today without regaining consciousness. Representatives of the Children's Hospital reported that the cause of death was heroin found in sweets. The victim was Kevin Toston, a child who fell into a coma early on Tuesday morning after trying one of the candies received on Saturday during the traditional gathering. The examination established that the boy had overdosed on a narcotic substance. Analysis of several candies showed that they were covered with a powder containing heroin mixed with quinine.
Some schools have canceled Halloween celebrations. They stopped using the word Halloween and started calling it Autumn Festival. Yes, it's terrible, but no less terrible is that all of this was actually printed in the newspaper.
At that time, panic seemed to be something ordinary, but this story turned out to be turned inside out. 3 days later, a refutation appeared in the newspaper, which reported that everything was not all as previously written. It turned out that the boy did not eat candy, but a real capsule they found in his uncle's house. And later it became clear how it really happened. According to Inspector Robert Slotka, Detroit drug candies were used as a cover for darker things. Dozens of people recently interviewed in Los Angeles recalled recent history with surprising accuracy. However, few could remember that this story turned out to be false. In fact, Halloween had nothing to do with the tragedy, and no one died from the candy. But despite this, the story was deeply rooted in people's minds. In addition, reports began to appear that needles and blades could be found in the candies, which only increased public fear. But many years later, the sociologist Joel Best, probably the only person who was so interested in this question, analyzed all such messages and found out in his research that all of these were misinterpreted situations. Practically all real cases were connected with sharp objects, not poison. These situations were quite controversial and did not lead to serious injuries, let alone death.
The idea that this is an acute social problem is a myth. I can't say that no one has ever poisoned children with candy, but I can't find any evidence that anyone has ever seriously harmed or killed a child with poisoned Halloween candy.
The most proven, and perhaps the only case with sharp objects occurred in 2000 when a certain James Joseph Smith specially inserted needles into a chocolate bar, and one child was actually stung. And in 1959, dentist William Shane distributed laxative tablets instead of candy, which caused vomiting in some children. But death on Halloween was initially associated with candy, although later the real cause was found. Summarizing, it can be said that this is basically an urban legend passed on from mouth to mouth. As far as I know, not a single child has been found who died directly from candy given by strangers. Issued by strangers remember this phrase, and we begin. This background was not accidental. It is very important to understand that, despite the fact that all this may seem like an exaggeration, people are really afraid that the child may get his last piece of candy that day. And perhaps they are right. After all, among all such stories, there is one that actually happened. Yes, it was she who led to real victims. October 31st, 1974. Another Halloween. Children and teenagers roam the lighted streets in funny costumes. They have one simple goal: to collect as many candies as possible.
Sweetness or ugliness.
Sounds everywhere. Many adults prepare sweets in advance. Other children are taken by surprise. But there are also those who do not like this holiday at all.
Get out of here, little ones, so that I don't see you again.
No one could even imagine then, what will this night turn into? No, this is not a story about maniacs or serial killers. This story is more about a family tragedy, but for some reason she scares no less. The O'Brien family. The daughter is Elizabeth. She's only 5 years old. The son is 8-year-old Timothy. Loving father and mother Ronald and Danny. An ordinary family living in a quiet, prosperous area. Ronald, who worked as an optician, arranged in advance with his friend Jimmy Bates on the evening of October 31st, go to his place for dinner, and then to go together with the children for sweets. Everything went as usual. Little Tamati came home and immediately wanted to try the candies he had just received. He was especially attracted to the Pixie Stick stick, a rather popular sweet of that time, a tube filled with aromatic powdered sugar. But in his hands was an unusual one, huge in size and clearly not from a standard package. Tamati opened it with interest and tasted the contents. The taste turned out to be strangely bitter, not all like sweetness. A few minutes later, the boy became ill. He felt nauseous, dizziness, and convulsions began. At that time, the wife, Dannon, stayed with friends, and Ronald, the boy's father, was confused and did not understand what to do. He tried to help his son, but Tamata's condition rapidly deteriorated. Already on the way to the hospital, the boy died. The autopsy showed that the cause of death was potassium cyanide poisoning. Someone put cyanide in one of the Pixie sticks.
It was a terrible sight, not only because a dead boy was lying in front of them. He was foaming at the mouth because of the cyanide.
But for the police, it was only the beginning. Poison candy appeared in the area, and no one knew where it came from. Perhaps it was sold directly from a factory. However, further investigation revealed that the Pixie sticks had been opened, filled with cyanide, and carefully sealed again with a stapler. Someone deliberately gave the child a deadly sweet. This was definitely not an urban legend. Imagine the people's shock when they were told that their children's candy could be poisoned. Who knows, maybe someone was going to eat them right now. Or maybe he already ate. Fortunately, the other children were unharmed. Religious people might have called it a miracle. After all, when all the candies were handed over to the police for analysis, it was discovered that 4 more large Pixie sticks had also been opened and laced with cyanide. No one had managed to eat them. So, who do you think could have done this? One of the neighbors? Maybe that elderly woman who always seems so nice. Or a teenager watching from the sidelines. Or maybe a complete stranger just driving by. I'll make it easier for you. It all came from one house. When everyone returned home, the adults began distributing the candy among the children. Elizabeth received a couple. The rest went to others. But suddenly they noticed one stick was extra. Just then, there was a knock on the door. A boy stood there loudly shouting,
"Trick or treat!"
Mr. Bates and Mr. O'Brien smiled as they spoke, making various caricatures as they handed over the Pixie sticks. The stick went to the boy next door. There were 5 Pixie sticks in all, each containing a lethal dose of cyanide, enough to kill even an adult. But who's going to eat the smut itself? While the investigation was underway, The boy was buried. The death of the boy hit his dad very hard.
That night, we saw a grieving father, a grieving mother, and a crying little sister. I put my hand on his shoulder and said, "I promise you, we will catch whoever did this to your son."
Other parents were also shocked and decided not to celebrate Halloween after the incident. They still didn't know who did it. No one did. But after lengthy conversations with the victims and attempts to figure out where those large candies came from, there was only one option left.
I just remember Ron running out of that house. He was holding those long candy sticks. The bright ones with powder inside. I have no idea where he got them. Honestly, I don't know who gave them to him.
We approached another house with the children. No one was in a hurry to open the door. I stood there waiting for about 20 seconds. The children quickly got bored and ran on ahead. Suddenly, the door opened slightly, and a hand appeared out of the darkness, holding out a packet of pixie sticks. I took it and immediately hurried to catch up with the children.
The police went to that very house, ready to arrest its residents, Courtney and Caroline Melvin. But it soon became clear Courtney had been at work that night until almost 11 o'clock. His colleagues confirmed this. And Caroline, according to neighbors, hadn't answered the door after 6:45 p.m. The evidence matched. Now answer one question. Do you really want to know who poisoned the boy? He poisoned his own son, Ronald Clark O'Brien. You ask, why did he do it? What was wrong with him? The answer lay on the surface. He was up to his ears in debt, and to pay them off, he secretly insured the lives of his children from his wife. In the event of their death, he was supposed to be paid $32,000 for each child. At 9 a.m. the next day after the tragedy, he called the insurance agent and the bank, demanding immediate payment of the money. But according to colleagues and friends, even before his son's death, he had repeatedly boasted that he would soon receive a large sum and buy a new house. Although it was obvious that he could not have such money, all this is described in detail in the court case materials. It is difficult to imagine a more cold-blooded evil. Having thought out every detail in advance, he developed a plan that was supposed to guarantee that the children would come with him for candy. He bought them costumes, carefully prepared, and in the meantime, he had already begun to think about how he would spend the money he would receive after their deaths. Long before the tragedy, he had made plans to buy a new house, pay off his debts, and even quit his job. Today, Pasadena police arrested the boy's father, 30-year-old Ronald O'Brien, on charges of murder. Why cyanide? Why such a cruel method for his own child? No one has yet found the answers to these questions.
Today, the fifth leaf fall of 1974, police in Pasadena, Texas, arrested 30-year-old Ronald Clark O'Brien. It is called for the killing of the powerful eightfold son, Timothy, and for the test of the killing of the fivefold daughter, Elizabeth. According to the investigation, O'Brien carefully cut off the children with sugars, mixing licorice powder with cyanide. The police want the person to act from a cold case and to refuse insurance payments that were filed shortly before the tragedy. The people of Pasadena are shocked. Father, how could he kidnap his children by transforming the most beautiful child into a holy death?
Why he chose such a brutal method remains a mystery. What is known is that Ronald had previously worked in both insurance and chemical industries, so he knew exactly what he was doing. He was deeply in debt and had secretly taken out life insurance on his children to raise money. To collect the payout, Ronald decided to kill his own son and cover his tracks. He opened and poisoned 4 more pixie stick sticks, which he distributed to other children, the 2 sons of his friend Jimmy Bates, a child from his church, and his own daughter, whose life was also insured. Or maybe I was right when I called money the real devil. This man would stop at nothing for it. His own children, his friends' children, the neighbors' children, he didn't care. Everyone could have been in danger. There's only one silver lining to this situation. He was too stupid to pull it all off without getting caught. Ronald's words and behavior gave him away. At work and among his acquaintances, he inquired about cyanide, trying to find out where to get it and what the lethal dose was. These conversations became proof of his guilt. His wife, day 9, unsuspecting, filed for divorce after the verdict. The trial lasted 9 years, with lawyers repeatedly postponing the execution. In 1982, they wanted to execute him on Halloween, but the sentence was postponed again. Ultimately, Ronald Clark O'Brien was found guilty and sentenced to death by injection for the murder of his son and the attempted murder of 4 other children. He maintained to the end that it wasn't he who did it, but a psycho who handed out poison candy on Halloween.
Mr. O'Brien claimed that it was all the work of some psycho or maniac who gave children poison sweets. He questioned this version in every possible way, referring to rumors, legends, and stories that were actively circulating in the city at that time, and which, the worst part, was believed by almost everyone.
Now, I hope you understand why the backstory was needed. In prison, he was nicknamed Candyman, and the attitude of other prisoners towards him was far from friendly. The only person he called a friend was a murderer named James David Autry, the same man who shot 2 people in a convenience store over a case of beer. 3 weeks before O'Brien's death, his friend had already been executed, and after that Ronald desperately tried to avoid his own fate. This is evidenced by his written request for pardon sent to the governor.
I do not want to die, but I will die as a Christian. I am ready to face death under any circumstances, but I have no desire to die,
wrote Mr. O'Brien. In his appeal to the governor, O'Brien asked for a 30-day delay so that his lawyers could file another appeal.
Everyone says that you will be executed on this Saturday. This may be your last interview. What are your final thoughts?
While I have at least some options left, I will try to prove my innocence.
Will you ever change your position?
No. After all, this is the truth. If you think carefully, you will understand. The real victim of this crime is me.
But Governor White said that society had already lost confidence in the judicial system, which allowed the execution of the sentence only after 9 years, so he saw no reason for further extension of the term.
It seems you're being executed. Do you agree with that?
Perhaps. I expected this outcome after the verdict, but that doesn't make it right.
Obviously, no one should rejoice over someone's death, but many Americans want you executed. They're not happy that you're still alive.
Yes, I know that. But then again, I don't think revenge is right. Society shouldn't seek revenge.
You're accused of ruining the very spirit of Halloween.
Well, that depends on how you look at it.
For his last meal, he chose steak, salad, French fries, and Boston cream pie. He was dressed in black pants, a khaki shirt, a black belt, and tennis shoes. He also insisted on wearing glasses. In his final moments, Ronald listened to the radio, reporting on his lawyer's unsuccessful attempts to save his life. But it was too late. Hundreds of people gathered outside the prison with signs, chanting the most famous Halloween phrase, "Trick or treat." Reporters were on hand, cameras rolling. Everyone held their breath. At dawn, Ronald Clark O'Brien, known as the Candyman, was executed at the Huntsville, Texas prison. He never admitted his guilt in the murder of his own son. The story, now told around Halloween bonfires, sounds like a terrifying legend. But the knowledge that it actually happened makes it truly creepy.
I heard some prisoners call you Candyman. Is that true?
No books were written or films were made about this story. After all, there was only one victim. But this does not make it any less terrible. This is a tragedy that happened because of, at first glance, a loving father, an ordinary family man, and a man of faith. What does it say? Already at the beginning of November, after the murder, Ronald performed a solo in the church, dedicated to his son. Yes, he sang in the church choir. And no one then could even imagine that this person would turn out to be a murderer, a cold-blooded manipulator who knew how to portray emotions and tried to frame everyone around him, did not admit guilt until death, trying to appear as a victim. But to be honest, no one promised that our expectations about people will always be met. We continue to believe, to be deceived, and again we will step on the same rake. Horror movies? Don't make me laugh. Real horror is all around us. He lives nearby, walks the streets, sits in offices, studies at school. And no one can know for sure what the person they see every day is capable of. The end is always the same: treatment, imprisonment, or execution. As in the case of Gaisai or O'Brien. Ronald's ex-wife said that she does not feel the slightest sympathy for the person who killed her son. People watching the case breathed a sigh of relief. After all, no matter what happens, the pain of losing a child never goes away. And yet there were those who supported the killer. For example, Kim Mangan, an 18-year-old student who corresponded with Ronald, exclaimed that she would miss him and cried after the funeral. She refused to say what they corresponded about, and perhaps we will never know. Like you, I cannot understand why such people arouse sympathy. Although he still made one good concession. Before the execution, Ronald donated his eyes to the Lion's Eye Bank, which is engaged in research and storage of donor material in order to later help someone restore their sight. He worked as an optician, and perhaps this had a special meaning for him. Yes, this concession can be called good, because he could not do it. But of course, this does not justify the terrible crime, because of which the whole city stopped celebrating Halloween. People's trust was shaken, and it is scary to realize that often only such tragedies force us to be more careful.
Well, Kenny, are you already scared?